Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm the House Hacking Mom. I hope everyone had a fabulous holiday season, Christmas and New Year's. We are now in the beginning of January, and I thought it would be fun to share a video with my tips for budgeting for those of us who don't actually enjoy budgeting that much. If you follow my channel, it might come as a surprise to you that I really don't enjoy budgeting, even though a lot of my content is about frugal living and saving money and staying on a budget and those sorts of things. But part of the reason that I have all these systems in place is because I really don't enjoy budgeting that much. There's a lot of other things I would rather do, but it's something that we all kind of need to do. It's like eating our vegetables. So here are a few tips that help me to make it much more manageable and bearable, and I really hope they help you as well. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. So my first tip for budgeting, if you really hate everything to do with budgeting and you're not a saver, you're more of a free spirit, budgeting can feel very restrictive, and it sounds like you're gonna have to do a bunch of things you don't wanna do, and you don't really want anyone else telling you what you have to do with your money. Well, I find it helpful to think of budgeting as more of a spending plan versus a restricting, skimping, saving sort of plan. Calling it a spending plan can be a better perspective because your job is to figure out where you're going to spend your money, and that's up to you. You have control over where you're going to spend your money. Nobody else does. And if you do it ahead of time on paper or on an app or something, then you know exactly where that money is going to be. You've already decided where it's going to be spent, and the best part is that you decided it. No one's really good marketing at Target decided that for you. Amazon didn't decide that for you. All these huge companies that are out there speaking to you and giving you messages about what you need and what you want, they can be very convincing, and they're very, very good at it. They spend billions of dollars on advertising because they know that it works. So it's good to give yourself a spending plan so that you know that at the end of the day, you decided where you were going to spend your money. Nobody else did. Now, my second tip for budgeting, if you really don't like it, is to use a budgeting app. Now, this is what I do. I use a budgeting app. It is called the Every Dollar budgeting app. It's put out by Dave Ramsey. There is a free version, and then there's a paid for version. The free version is the one that I use, and it's just, basic budgeting app. It comes with a bunch of suggested categories. It comes with built-in escrow savings, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. If you don't even know what that is, don't worry about it. I'm going to explain it. And it's just really simple to use, very user-friendly. That's the one that we use. And then there is a paid version, which would be really awesome if you're in a lot of debt, especially consumer debt, high interest debt that you really need to get out of. The paid for version comes with Every Dollar Plus, and it's going to have the Dave Ramsey classes. So I highly recommend that if you're in a bunch of debt, but otherwise just use the free version. It works great. And there are other apps out there. This is just the one I've used for the last several years, and I really have been happy with it. The reason that I think a budgeting app is so helpful is because most of us do all of our banking on our phones anyway. If you were to do your budgeting with a pad and pen, for example, you're going to be having to look back and forth, between your phone and the pad of paper to write down all the amounts and that sort of thing. Whereas if you just do it on an app, then you're just holding your phone and switching back between, your banking app and your budgeting app, or you can even set them up to sync if you like. So it makes it a lot more seamless, and you always have it with you. I mean, when do any of us not have our phones with us? We always have our phones with us. So I really recommend doing a budgeting app, and it's so simple. It's already set up for you. You don't have to, come up with all these categories on your own. Most of them give you a really great starting point, and then you can add categories in as you see fit. My next tip is super, super important, and that is to fill out your budget weekly. Now, your budget should be set up monthly. You should have a January budget and a February budget and a March budget. So that's not what I mean. But at the end of every week, you should be going back through all of your expenses, your debit card, your credit card if you use a credit card, if you use cash, your receipts, of course, and you should be taking all of those numbers and putting them into your budget. It's the only way to make sure you're actually budgeting how you're supposed to be doing it. And doing it weekly keeps this so manageable. I used to do it monthly, and I realized that it was completely defeating the purpose, because if I went over budget in a certain category, I didn't realize it until the end of the month. So I went over budget, not on purpose, but there was nothing that I could do. The month was already over and I was already short starting in the next month. So if you budget weekly, then, maybe you're coming up a little bit short in, your fun category, for example, halfway through the month. Well, then okay, I've only got $10 to spend next week and $10 to spend the week after that. You can actually adjust as needed to make sure that you are going to come out on budget. Now, when I say adjust, that does not mean, borrowing from all your different categories to make things fit. No. But if you do realizing that you're having, lots of excess in one category and you're always coming up short in another category, then you would want to adjust those numbers the next month. But doing it weekly keeps everything super manageable. It means that you can do all of your budgeting in probably about 5 minutes, sometimes even less. There are some weeks where I don't spend hardly any money. I go to the grocery store and, a couple bills on auto pay came out of our bank account and that's it. And all I have to do is put those in and my budgeting for the week is done in about 5 minutes. So really, really highly recommend doing your budgeting weekly. The next tip for budgeting, if you really don't enjoy it, is to make sure that you have different bank accounts. And this isn't even necessarily for people who just don't like budgeting, but it's helpful for people who are a little bit more visual. Visual things help them, which is definitely me. So when we first started budgeting, we only had 2 accounts. We had our checking account and our savings account. And even though in the budget, a certain amount of the savings was set aside for our emergency fund, and a certain amount of our savings was set aside for escrow. So escrow basically means plan future savings that you are putting aside every month toward that category, not big things like saving for a down payment or saving for a vehicle or saving for a vacation. That's separate. Escrow would be more like, we know we have to pay our vehicle taxes at the end of the year. And so we set aside the appropriate amount every month so that we have that money at the end of the year. Or, we set aside $160 a month for the maintenance of our home, for example. So maybe there are, several months where we don't spend anything. And then one month, we need to fix our AC unit and that costs several $100s. That comes out of your escrow account. But for me, visually, when all of that money was just in one giant pot, I couldn't visualize how much was allocated to each number, even though it was in the budget and I could see it. I just really needed that demarcation between the different amounts of money. So I finally talked my husband into letting us get several different bank accounts. Now it's all within the same bank, but it's separate bank accounts. So we have a checking account, of course, a savings account, which for us, that is basically our emergency fund and above and beyond that savings. And then we have our escrow account, which has, things like car maintenance, home maintenance, taxes, all that sort of stuff goes into our escrow account. And then we have our health savings account, which that is in a separate bank because that it's all tied up to his job and that's the bank that they go through. But your health savings account is super important. I highly recommend that you get one. A lot of companies offer one, and if you're self-employed, you can still get one. So a health savings account is basically money that's pre-tax that you can set aside to save specifically for health-related costs. So, this could be for anything from, co-pays for your doctor's visits, surgery, your prescriptions, just your regular over-the-counter medicines, all that sort of stuff can come out of your health savings account and it's pre-tax money. So those are 4 basic bank accounts that I think everybody should have just to have that visual. So you've got your checking account, your savings account, which includes your emergency fund, which would be 3 to 6 months of expenses. And then you've got your escrow savings, and then you have your health savings account. And then on top of that, if it helps you even more, you can have separate savings accounts for specific things. So say, in the year 2022, by the end of the year, I want to have saved up $15,000 so I can buy a new car. You could put that into a separate bank account so you can really keep yourself accountable and see how much you've actually saved toward that goal. Or maybe you want to save up for an awesome vacation this summer. You could do the same thing and have a separate savings account. So I think separate savings accounts are super, super helpful, and they really, show you black and white visually exactly what you have towards each category of your finances. The last tip I have when it comes to budgeting for those of us who don't really enjoy budgeting that much would be to set goals and have rewards for yourself. Budgeting can sometimes feel very restricting. Sometimes, you're going to set challenges for yourself. You're really going to try to be tight. So when you meet a goal, when you set a goal and you reach it, give yourself a little bit of a treat. Let yourself have a little bit of fun. And these can be really small or they can be really big. So if you've never actually stuck to your grocery budget before, this is the month you're going to do it. Stick to your grocery budget and give yourself a little bit of a treat afterwards. Maybe you say to yourself, after, not if, after I hit my budgeting goal, I'm going to get myself a nice Starbucks drink, for example. Or your rewards don't have to have anything to do with money. Maybe after you reach a particular budgeting goal, you say, I'm going to make myself take a nice hot bubble bath. You can set your rewards however you like, but I do think they are encouraging and give you the energy you need to keep going when it comes to budgeting. So I hope this video was helpful, giving you some inspiration to actually do your budgeting and some helpful tips for doing your budget in 2022. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel. I make videos like this every week about frugal living, healthy eating, and minimalist parenting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.